Advertising for gun manufacturers and FFLs has been a hot-button issue in recent years, and several states have introduced laws to restrict how gun makers and sellers advertise their business and products. Now, unable to point to a similar policy, officials in Flagstaff, Arizona have decided that it's better to ban all advertising completely rather than to allow a local gun range to advertise to potential customers. In their explanation, the city says it's because firearm training encourages violent and antisocial behavior. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now, I don't know anything about the political demographics of Flagstaff specifically, but I'm surprised to hear that this is happening in Arizona. It actually reminds me a lot of the town in California that put a temporary ban on business permits just so they didn't have to give a permit to an outdoor sporting shop that also happened to occasionally sell a few pew-pews. This case is also especially interesting because the city isn't looking to ban advertising from everywhere in town or even private property. If that were the case, they wouldn't really have to go through many hoops because a private citizen could decide which businesses are advertised on their property and which aren't. Instead, they're trying to freeze out a gun range from running a silent 10-second ad that has already been on the regular rotation at the city airport. And because it's government property and the government is looking to ban him from advertising, that makes it a First Amendment issue. Now, before I get into this particular circus, I'd like to tell you all about the Attorneys on Retainer program from the Attorneys for Freedom and why I think it is a worthy investment. There was a lot in the news in the last few months about a particular DoorDash driver who shot a YouTube prankster that was harassing him at the mall. It's maybe not the best case of self-defense to hang your hat on, but it was a legal shoot. Well, it turns out that after the incident, he called his self-defense insurance and the insurance denied him coverage to pay for a lawyer. And to top it all off, the prosecution even tried to use that fact against him in court, which frankly is just adding insult to injury. I have read two different but both very likely and troubling explanations. The first being it's because an insurance adjuster looks at your case before a lawyer does, and the second is because it's illegal for an insurance company to insure a criminal act, which kind of seems to defeat the purpose of concealed carry insurance and the idea of innocent until proven guilty. They'll also pull coverage if your self-defense incident was in a gun-free zone or had certain other details listed in the fine print. So that is why today I have partnered with the Attorneys on Retainer program. It's run by an actual law firm and not an insurance company. And because they're a law firm, they don't have to dance around all the different types of exclusions like insurance companies typically do. So if you are a gun owner, be sure to check out the Attorneys on Retainer program through my link down in the description, and as a bonus, use my promo code LibertyDoll for $50 off your membership today. Timberline Firearms and Training is owned by Navy vet Rob Wilson. He has had a silent 10-second long ad on the regular summer rotation over Flagstaff Pulliam Airport's baggage carousel since 2019. The ad ran only during tourist season when people flock to the area and there's a huge uptick in outdoor sporting business. There has also never been a single complaint about this advertisement. But this summer, when Wilson reached out to officials to renew his ad, it was rejected for violating the city's new ban on displaying, quote, violence or antisocial behavior in its new advertising policy against depicting guns. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where the plot thickens, because it turns out that the policy doesn't actually exist. Or rather, it wasn't proposed or discussed by the city council until September, months after Wilson attempted to renew his ad in May. It didn't even receive a vote until the middle of this month, and even then, the final proposal was one to ban ads specifically for guns and ammo, not necessarily ranges and training, and it wasn't even adopted. So in that regard, you can see why this is all very similar to the California story that I mentioned earlier of a city banning a thing until they can come up with a rule to justify banning the thing. City officials claim that it's because when Wilson first started running the ad space was managed by a private third-party contractor, and now it's managed by the city directly, and they found his previously approved ad to be inappropriate content. But the First Amendment says that the government doesn't get to decide what is and isn't appropriate First Amendment speech, especially when that protected speech is in regards to another protected right. And the Supreme Court has affirmed that commercial speech enjoys First Amendment protections unless the government can prove a vested interest otherwise. And in this case, they cannot. They also claimed that the new ad was a video and therefore not subject to whatever First Amendment protections, which Rob's legal team says is a flat-out lie. Not only is the ad the same series of still photos used since 2019, it also has the original 2019 timestamp. But even so, video advertisements are covered just as much as photo and print. So Rob Wilson hired a team of lawyers alleging free speech and due process violations. And seeing as it's a First Amendment issue and the policy was created to justify their decision after the fact, it was pretty clear that the city was likely to lose. His attorneys had even argued a similar case, also in Arizona a decade prior, and won. So, naturally, the city decided to take their ball and go home so no one could play with it in the form of banning all advertising in the airport and other city properties except for city advertising. All of this over a 10-second ad advertising a gun range that had never had any complaints. I mean, frankly, I thought that one of the things the left is always talking about is that if we have to allow gun ownership, we should allow training. Training happens at the gun range. I mean, you don't want it happening on the city block, right? Not that a law-abiding citizen would ever do that, but you understand my point. Now, at the November 14th City Council meeting, the council agreed to get rid of advertising completely out of concerns of offending airline passengers and having to pay for costly litigation to uphold an anti-gun policy. At the meeting, they then agreed to only allow advertising from a city-funded ad company called Discover Flagstaff, whose job it is to promote government-approved tourist attractions and local businesses, like Wilson's gun range. But only if those businesses are on the special secret government list, which presents a whole host of similar problems and opens them up to even more lawsuits from other businesses over the city government playing favorites. And so round and round in circles we go. At the end of the day, the city has been tying itself into knots trying to keep Wilson from advertising while also trying to avoid the possible lawsuits from violating his rights by doing a broader thing that opens them up to bigger, more lawsuits from violating even more rights of more people. Which sounds about on par for government employees, actually, now that I say it that way. Yeah, that's pretty legit. Anyways, I found this story really interesting and I think it will be a fun one to follow. I have not seen it anywhere on the 2A community radar. And yes, it is a First Amendment issue, but it's a First Amendment issue that also involves 2A rights. So I really think that it deserves more coverage than it's been getting. The only people I've seen covering it, frankly, have been Reason Magazine, and they have been wishy-washy ever since the Trump presidency. So I will be following this and seeing if it really does go to court and what these city officials of Flagstaff decide to do. I think it could be a really interesting case if it moves forward. We'll have to see. Anyways, if you live in Arizona and near Flagstaff specifically, maybe go check out Timberline Firearms and Training if you have a chance. Because the city government certainly doesn't want you to. That's it for this video, guys. You know all the things. Like, share, subscribe if you are new here, and even if you're not, because YouTube might have deleted your subscription. Also, ring the notification bell if you want to actually be updated about my videos and have me show up in your algorithm, because otherwise it's just a crapshoot. I might be there, I might not. Nobody knows. Drop a comment down below also for the algorithm powers that be, and as always, thanks for tuning in, and happy shooting.